The first thing people noticed was the way the room seemed to shrink when he walked in, as if fear itself needed space to breathe. His leather vest was heavy with patches, the kind that made bartenders stiffen and mothers pull their kids closer, and his boots carried the dust of 100 unforgiving miles. But what no one noticed at first was the way his eyes softened when he froze in the doorway, staring at something so gentle, so unexpected, that it nearly broke him where he stood. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the idea that even the hardest hearts can still feel, take a moment right now to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, subscribe to the channel, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. This story begins in a place most people never look twice at, and it ends somewhere no one could have predicted. Jack Mercer had spent most of his life learning how not to feel. He learned it on the streets first, then on the open highways, and finally inside a brotherhood that prized loyalty, strength, and silence above all else. As a Hell's Angel, Jack wore his reputation like armor. People crossed the street when they saw him coming. Bar owners watched his hands more than his face. Waitresses smiled nervously and kept their distance. That was how it had always been, and for a long time, Jack believed that was all his life would ever need to be. Ride, drink, fight if he had to, and keep moving before anything could slow him down or hurt him. But everything changed the day his daughter Emma was born. Life had already taken her mother, a quiet, steady woman named Sarah who believed Jack was more than his patches and scars. When complications during childbirth took Sarah away, Jack was left with a fragile, silent baby and a grief so deep it nearly swallowed him whole. Emma grew, but not the way doctors promised she would. Developmental delays turned into diagnoses. Diagnoses turned into words Jack didn't fully understand but felt like punches to the chest. Cerebral palsy. Limited speech. Lifelong care. The world that had always feared him now pitted him, and somehow that hurt even more. Jack tried, in his own rough way. He worked odd jobs, took runs with the club when he had to, and learned how to lift Emma gently, how to feed her without rushing, how to read her face when words wouldn't come. Still, money was tight, and exhaustion followed him like a shadow. When his bike broke down one afternoon on the edge of a small town he barely remembered riding through years ago, he pushed it to the nearest place with lights on, a rundown roadside bar called Miller's End. Inside, the air smelled like old wood, fryer grease, and loneliness. Jack took a corner booth where he could keep Emma's wheelchair close, hoping to fix his bike enough to leave before attracting attention. Emma was hungry, and Jack fumbled with a half-crushed packet of crackers, his hands clumsy with fatigue. That was when he noticed her. Her name was Lily Thompson, and she was the kind of waitress most people overlooked. No dramatic beauty, no sharp edge, just tired eyes and a kindness that lingered even when she thought no one was watching. She noticed Emma first, noticed the way the child's hands trembled and how Jack's jaw clenched as he struggled to help her eat. Without asking, without hesitation, Lily knelt beside the table, her movements slow and respectful, and gently took over feeding Emma, wiping her chin, smiling as if this was the most natural thing in the world. Jack didn't move. He didn't breathe. In his life, people either feared him or judged him, and his daughter was usually treated like an inconvenience or a tragedy. But Lily looked at Emma like she was simply a little girl who deserved care. Jack watched his daughter's face relax, watched her eyes light up in a way he hadn't seen in weeks, and something inside him cracked. He didn't stop Lily. He couldn't. He just sat there, fists clenched under the table, fighting back tears that would have embarrassed him more than any bar fight ever could. What Jack didn't know was that the bar owner had other ideas. Miller's End was struggling, and the presence of a Hell's Angel with a disabled child wasn't the kind of attention he wanted. He watched from behind the counter as Lily fed Emma, his irritation growing. When Jack finished fixing his bike and prepared to leave, Lily quietly refused his attempt to overpay, telling him with a gentle firmness that kindness didn't come with a price tag. That act alone would have been enough to stay with Jack forever, but as Jack wheeled Emma toward the door, the owner stopped them, his voice sharp with impatience. He made it clear they weren't welcome anymore, muttering about customers and problems and how some people should know better. Lily tried to intervene, her face flushed with anger and shame, but the damage was done. Jack didn't argue. He didn't threaten. He simply nodded, lifted Emma into place, and left. On the road again, the night colder than it should have been, Jack pulled over miles away and let himself break. He thought about Sarah, about the life that was supposed to be, about how close he came to believing the world had nothing left for people like him and his daughter. He also thought about Lily, kneeling on a sticky bar floor in a worn uniform, choosing compassion when it cost her nothing and everything all at once. Back at his clubhouse, Jack spoke to his brothers. Not with anger, not with demands, but with a story. He talked about his daughter. He talked about kindness. He talked about a waitress who reminded him that humanity didn't belong to any one kind of person. By morning, the decision was made. 2 days later, Miller's End opened like any other afternoon, quiet and slow. Then the rumble began. 1 bike. 10. 50. 200 Hell's Angels rolling in, engines thunderous, vests unmistakable. The parking lot filled. The bar fell silent. The owner's face drained of color as Jack walked in, calm and controlled, Emma not with him this time but very much on his mind. The bikers didn't destroy the place. They didn't threaten anyone. They ordered food, tipped generously, and filled every booth and stool. They talked loudly about loyalty, about family, about taking care of your own. Jack found Lily, her hands shaking as she poured drinks, and placed an envelope on the counter. Inside was more money than she'd ever seen at once, collected by men most people called monsters, for a woman who proved she wasn't afraid to be human. By the time the bikes left, the message was clear without a word being spoken. Respect mattered. Kindness mattered. And judging people without knowing their story came at a cost. In the weeks that followed, things changed. The bar owner sold Miller's End, shaken by what he'd witnessed. Lily found a better job, helped along quietly by Jack and his brothers. Jack started a small fund through the club to help families with disabled children, something no one on the outside ever expected from men like them. And Emma, surrounded by people who loved her fiercely, laughed more than she ever had before. Just before this story ends, take a moment and comment below what part of this journey stayed with you the most. Near the end of his life, Jack would still ride, still wear his patches, but he carried something else too. A softness born not of weakness, but of love. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness can appear in the unlikeliest places and that no one is beyond redemption, please like, share, and comment. Your engagement keeps stories like this alive, and sometimes, it's those stories that change us the most.